So today I'm super excited to welcome Dr. Nick. How do you say your last name? Sneddon.
Sneddon.
Sneddon. He is a senior lecturer in animal breeding and genetics in the School of Agriculture and Environment at Massey University. He's completed his PhD in animal breeding and then spent several years in industry at Fonterra working across large-scale animal and production data, and then later as a senior research scientist running a genomic sequencing lab. His research interest spans across almost all aspects of animal breeding and genetics, including more recently his work in genome mining. So we will be exploring how genetics and early development shape long-term health, resilience, and behavior, and what ethical breeding looks like when long-term outcomes are prioritized in this episode. So hello, Nick, and thank you for being on.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's quite a fun opportunity, really.
Yeah, awesome. So, for someone that is new to your work, can you share a little bit about what it is to work in animal breeding and genetics, and also sort of the way that you came down this path, I suppose?
Yep. So might as well start at how I ended up down the path because it
Yeah,
follows
yeah,
a,
let's
a
do
good
that.
story.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
I grew up on a dairy farm in the Waikato
Mm,
here in New Zealand, and the whole way through, I enjoyed being around animals, enjoyed and quite loved watching the changes we got over time with them. This year's calves were different to last year's calves, which we get different to the year before. And so that sort
mm,
of sparked the genetics interest in me.
mhm.
So I came down to university and I thought I was doing molecular genetics. So genome sequencing, working in a lab, DNA stuff. And as I was doing that, I started taking agriculture papers and animal science papers just because of where I'd grown up. So they were sort of familiar territory when you come out of a
Mhm.
biochemistry lab and you've been spending hours looking at test tubes.
Okay.
And that sort of,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I found out that a lot of animal breeding genetics is maths.
Mhm.
And even though I did terribly at that at high school, it turns out that when you get into really advanced math, it's actually quite fun, at least for my brain it was. So that's then sparked a look into animal breeding and sort of research in that space. So at that point, I spent
Interesting.
close to 4 years looking at lactose in dairy cows and how we could breed to change it. And that was also when my stubbornness came to its fore. A lot of people say, "Oh, why are you looking at that? It's 4.7. It's never going to change. It's always the same number." And it must be able to change it. So
Mm.
I spent basically 4 years showing that you could change it, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah,
And then,
yeah.
yeah, and then finished up that and sort of was looking around for genetics roles and things like that. And
Yeah.
actually, one came up, oddly enough, in a pastures space. So I then spent a year working in pastures. So grasses, animal grazing management, all that. So learning a
Okay.
completely different skill set.
Yeah.
And then got a phone call going, "Are you looking for work, as a business analyst slash statistician?" I was like, could be cool. So that's when I went to Fonterra. I spent 2.5 years as a business analyst. So I analysed the data that Fonterra generates between the cow, or actually between the soil and the factory. So all
Okay.
farm
Yeah.
systems,
Yeah.
fertilizers, grasses, how the cows are being fed, when they're calving,
Yeah.
and then moved into a bioinformatics role, which was the genome sequencing lab. And that was actually in food safety. So
Wow.
here's a guy who grew up on a dairy farm, works with dairy cows, and I was now looking at the genomes of bacteria that we were finding that could be found in a factory or could be found in food or just in general, like probiotics, what was making those things really cool. So I did that for another 2.5 years, and then the role came up here at the university to take on the role as a lecturer. So I came back to university and started to teach, and that allowed me to take all of those aspects that I've gotten through that career, from grasses, a little bit around soils, animals,
Mhm.
breeding,
Mhm.
and the genomes of them, and put them all together. So now I've actually got research projects looking at sheep. So we're looking for sheep that lose their own wool. We don't have to share them every year. I've do a lot of work nationally on dairy beef. So how do we make beef calves from dairy cows that are going to perform the best? And then
Okay.
with the dog that's up here behind me, I've also been involved for the last 2 years in a large research project where we are attempting to genetically classify hunterways and heading dogs across New Zealand. So
Okay. Yeah.
what makes a heading dog a heading dog? What makes a hunterway a hunterway?
Yeah.
Do
That's
we
interesting.
do we have specific diseases that are in them? Do we have specific behaviours that are in them? Can we find the genetic root cause of those?
Okay. And quick question on that one, because heading dogs are New Zealand only, right? They're a New Zealand only breed. So do they have a unique genetic makeup? Like, when you get DNA testing done on a dog, will it come up heading dog or will it come up border collie?
So it'll come up border collie. It'll come up border collie and something called a Patagonian sheepdog.
Okay.
And even these guys, so the Hunterway is a New Zealand unique breed as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And they'll come up as a Patagonian sheepdog and generally some form of collie.
Okay.
And what we think is happening is around about 100 to 150 years ago, when all of these dogs were being, probably close to 200 now if I think about my age, these animals were being sent around the world from England. So they originate as dogs in England.
Mhm.
They were sent to Patagonia, so bottom end of Argentina. They were sent down there,
Mhm.
and some other ones were sent here to New Zealand. And what they did is these were just an English sheepdog, but
Mhm.
it doesn't exist in England. It's gone into extinct as a breed in England. And
Okay.
in about
Yeah.
2016, they sequenced a bunch of these sheepdogs in Patagonia and added them into the database. So because our dogs and their dogs share ancestry, when
Okay.
we it classifies them as this other dog breed,
Right. Yeah.
which has been quite confusing to explain
Yeah.
that it's like we know that the English immigrated to New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah.
But if you went and sequenced Australians and then had
Yeah.
that as your database and sequenced New Zealanders from
Mhm.
English descent, it'll say that they're Australian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But on top of that, if you went and sequenced people from England, it would start by saying that they're also English. That'd also be Australian because that's the
Yeah.
starting point.
Okay.
There's no extra data to fill in the gaps.
Okay. So when I'm going a little bit off topic, but when you look at these two breeds, how can you tell that that's what they are? I mean, obviously their appearance and everything, but if you can't
Yeah.
tell from a DNA
Uh,
perspective.
so that's the amazing part is we've actually been able to tell them apart genetically.
Okay.
So even though they have got this shared ancestry of
Mhm.
collies and Patagonian sheepdogs, when we
Mhm.
plotted them side by side, like using the markers in the genome, they were two distinct groups. They would not.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
were clearly different breeds to the extent we could identify two that had been mislabeled. So we had a Hunterway that was hanging out in the
Mhm.
heading dog group and a heading dog that was hanging out in the Hunterways. And what had happened is someone writing on a piece of paper, as we do, had written down the breed as heading dog and then swabbed the Hunterway and then written down the other one as a
Yeah.
Hunterway and swabbed the heading dog and just switched the samples. And we
Yeah.
were able to find that through what genetic information we had.
Okay. So it was a good mistake.
It was a good mistake and it helped because we sort
Yeah.
of had, if you think about a square box, in the top left-hand corner, we had Hunterways.
Mhm.
In the bottom right-hand corner, we had heading dogs. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we had terriers. So we had a couple of Jack Russells, some Staffordshire Bull Terriers. In the middle, between all three of these groups, we had like what you'd classify as a standard pig dog.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
got a bit of everything in it, and it sort of
Yeah.
sat in the middle going, I don't know which way I go.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we didn't
Interesting.
have any Labradors or anything to find out whether anything went
Yeah.
in the other corner. But
Yeah.
we've definitely got these three clusterings, and we can use that to go, how pure are they, or how different are they?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. I could talk about this for ages. So I know you've worked a lot with farm animals and other animals other than dogs, but we'll focus mainly on dogs. But obviously, if there's other animals that can explain this better, then yeah, bring them into the conversation. But why would you say that this sort of conversation that we're having is important for the general public and especially dog owners?
Well, to me, I'm going to use production animals again because it's a bit
No,
more
yeah,
easier.
I mean,
Um,
use them as much as possible, just like
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So if we think about, so dogs dogs and cattle were both domesticated, roughly
Yeah,
8 to 10,000 years ago
yeah.
as a general rule. And both of them have followed the same trajectory where we've moved them towards a purpose we're after. When we look at production animals, we've driven them to growth and either milk production or meat production or
Mhm,
as a beast of burden. So they've
mhm.
had a physical purpose. So we've kept breeding them for their size and their shape that they will fulfill that purpose. They're still roughly the same shape and size that they were when they started.
Yeah,
If we look at dogs actually followed that same path up until about 140 years ago. A dog was still dog shaped. They didn't have these smushed in faces. They have long body. They were more sleek shaped. They were built for running or chasing, or even the pet
yeah,
ones were still a dog. Look at a English Bull Terrier from 100 years ago.
yeah,
It's got a snout that's straight.
yeah, yeah.
So they were bred for a purpose. And then we sort of shifted and we're now looking at animals that are being bred for aesthetics. So how can I make this look the way I want it to look?
Mhm.
So we've gone from a dog is a dog shaped thing to dogs are this myriad of shapes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's happened in 100 years,
That's
which
crazy.
is not a very long time.
No.
But it also means that we've done that. In
Mhm,
some of our cases, in half our lifetimes, in our lifetime, we've been involved in this process.
mhm.
So it then falls back on us as dog owners, as dog breeders, as people that just like dogs. Who doesn't like a good doggo? And
Yeah.
trying to help their next generation be better or
Mhm.
healthier than the current generation are.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
where I see that communication, or that those conversations happening is.
yeah.
You can keep your dog looking how you like it to look, but is there stuff that you could breed for or change in its breeding or its genetics that would
To help
help it
them.
become the best that they could be?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say from your perspective that that people are having that conversation more or that it's getting almost worse?
In some of the breeds, that conversation is happening and it's
Mhm,
happening in a good way.
mhm,
Some of the other breeds, the conversation is either not happening or it's being slightly resisted.
mhm.
We have to move away from this for the animal's sake. And it's like,
Yeah.
but I like how they look.
Yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
change how they look. So it's just helping.
So silly, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I, even if we think, there's been different countries around the world that have put in legislation around brachycephalic and airways for dogs and how that they making sure that they breathe properly and that they're going to be healthy. One of the things we think is cute with short-faced dogs is the way they snore. And
Mhm.
they're snoring because their soft palate is actually closing their airways.
Yeah, yeah,
So we attach cuteness and things to weird parts of what we're doing.
yeah, to things that aren't positive almost.
Yeah. Um, and I think there's some good movement happening in quite a lot of the breed societies where they're going, actually, we want to move towards this
Yeah.
healthier state for our dogs. And they're changing the breed standards where they
Mhm,
can to move them
mhm.
towards that
Okay.
direction.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you do
as
you
with
know
everything,
what the process is for that for them?
yeah, it's a long and drawn out one. I know that
Yeah,
because you have to vote as a society that you're going to
yeah,
change your breed
okay.
standard,
Yeah,
and then you have to get the votes and go through
yeah,
that process, and you have to,
yeah.
if it's part of an international one, you'd have to get the international breed society
Mhm. Okay,
committees to agree
gotcha.
to those changes as well.
Crazy, so much to it.
I
When
mean,
there's
ironically,
well sorry.
Hunterways, this dog that's standing behind me, they didn't
Yeah.
have a breed standard for like 140 years,
Mhm.
and they all ended up being black and tan, a large dog that could
Yeah,
bark.
yeah,
That was the extent of their breed requirements.
yeah.
They wrote the breed standard. If you have a look at it, is just like, it's kind of this size. They look like this.
Whatever.
And then in what it must have, bark. They've specified that it's got to have a commanding bark. and that has been given equal weighting to how they look or what shape they are.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's the opposite with so many other
And
breeds.
I've been out and measured them. So we've found hunterways that are close to a metre long. So a metre from the back of their head
Mm,
to the tip of their tail.
wow,
And
yeah,
then we've found other hunterways that were only 60 centimetres. It's a
my god.
40% difference in their
Yeah,
size.
yeah, that's crazy.
Heights from 45 centimetres tall through to close to 75 centimetres tall.
Yeah,
So there's this massive phenotypic range, which also helps with genetics because it gives you more genetic variance to buffer against other things that might
okay,
happen.
yeah, interesting. Well, you've said genetic, so can you explain what genetic actually means?
Yep. So it's basically it's four letters: A, C, T, and G, and that encodes everything that animal's physiology is going to do, or how they're going to be set up as an animal from the point at which the egg and the sperm fuse. It's been set on a trajectory that's what the genetics say it's going to become. Now, with different traits, that trajectory gets altered based on the environment the animal's going through. So something like height, so how tall the dog is, that's got about a 70% heritability. So
Okay,
70% of that dog's height is determined by its genetics. The remaining 30% is determined by the environment that dog has experienced up until that point. So you could have two pups that are identical, so genetically identical at birth, take one and feed it a calorie restricted lower protein diet. It's going to grow slower and be smaller. Take the other one, put it on a high protein, high calorie diet. It's going to be a larger dog. They're,
wow.
they're genetically identical. So their
Mm,
genetic trajectories are the same and their phenotypes, so what we see as an animal, has been altered based on what they're experiencing over time.
okay, and from a health perspective, the dog that got bigger, would that be the healthier dog, or is there no answer to that?
For some conditions, it'll be healthier. For others, it might not be. Because of
Okay.
course, as with everything, there is a healthy point to size
Mhm,
growth, but generally if it has reached its genetic potential for its height and its weight, then it's going to be a healthier dog than one that has been restricted.
mhm,
So as they go through calorie restriction and stuff like that, they still want to grow, but it means that the bones grow thin. They
yeah,
don't build as they grow because bones are a combination of your proteins and minerals. So if you haven't got the
yeah,
proteins, your bones don't grow properly.
yeah,
So you end up with
yeah,
bandy legs and things like that. So,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
that leads to all other things.
of
Your
course.
organs, they have to grow with you. So if you're physically on the outside not growing as fast, your internal
Mhm,
organs are also not growing as fast. It'll cause defects with the heart, liver, spleen, can cause cognitive issues where the brain isn't developing properly. Um,
okay,
although generally the brain gets a lot more of the body's nutrients than other organs.
okay,
Yeah, so
crazy.
generally feed them well and they will grow to their potential.
Yeah, so obviously the height thing, that's interesting, and, 2 puppies from that have the same genetics. Crazy, had no idea about that. What about behavior? Yeah,
Yeah,
give us a rundown.
behavior ends up being a really, really interesting thing to get into because if you ask someone how tall a dog is,
Mhm,
they immediately go, I'll
mm,
get out a tape measure or a ruler and I'll tell you exactly how tall it is.
mhm,
Ask someone, is a dog well behaved? That
yeah,
now goes, you're no longer on a
yeah,
objective scale, you're on a subjective scale.
yeah,
So, as well as the variances and the changes that are coming through from the environment the dog has gone through, you've now added in changes and variations for the person who's scoring the dog. So, I've got a staffy at home, and if someone asked me if he's well behaved, then my answer would be no. He's an idiot. Um, he's a fantastic idiot.
yeah,
Would
yeah,
I trust him around children or small animals? I would.
yeah,
And the reason is he's well behaved from a interacts with people and other animals. But if sees some socks on the floor, he's probably going to chew the sock.
yeah,
Um, I've lost many a pair of sock to the dog. But he, you know, that's his behaviours.
yeah,
Um, And
Yeah.
some of them end up being, you know, you hear about dogs that chew their way through walls. It's not the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah,
The
yeah,
dog was, the dog wasn't misbehaving when it was doing it. It was doing that to relieve a stress or an anxiety for
yeah,
some other reason.
yeah.
But genetically speaking, most behaviors have a really low heritability.
Okay.
So, if we're talking about height, which is height and weight, 70% heritabilities. When we start looking at behaviors, we might be down to looking at something in the range of maybe 5 to 8% heritability.
Wow.
So now you're looking at 90 to 95% of that dog's behavior is down to the experiences that that dog has had throughout its
Mhm,
lifetime.
mhm,
And that's even the same with humans. Like human behavior has
mm.
the same low level of heritability because you, at this point in your life, are the sum total of all of the interactions between your brain and society.
Yeah, yeah.
So the dog's exactly the same, where it is the sum total of all of the interactions it's had with people. So if you have a
Yeah.
dog that's left alone as a puppy, it's not got time where it's played with, even if it's just throwing a ball around a lounge or out in the garden for 5 minutes a day, just some sort of positive interaction with people. If its
Mm,
only interaction is someone comes out, gives it some food and goes away again, and then maybe once a week takes it for a walk, that dog's behavior is going to be different to a dog that gets played with every day, gets a belly rub. Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that's what's driving it. They can be
yeah,
identical dogs,
yeah.
but their behaviors and their experiences are what are driving what that dog becomes.
What about when it comes down to, like, you said the hunt away bark? Because they do, for the most part, they're noisy. Would you say that that's just a trait that's more heritable or
Yeah, so the bark itself is coming from their physiology, so their shape.
okay,
So a
so it's
big,
not
deep
behavior
chest,
by
it's not necessarily a behavior itself.
okay.
Barking in the kennels can be, but then that's their ability to learn a behavior.
Mhm,
So if they're hanging out with another dog that barks, "Oh,
mhm.
this is a fun game, we'll bark."
Yeah,
And then someone comes and yells at us, and that's still human interaction.
yeah,
So it reinforces that we bark, we get some friends.
yeah,
Um, so that can happen as well, where we unfortunately end up reinforcing some of those behaviors because we think we're quieting them down. Their trainability, so how their drive to go and work sheep and other stock, those are definitely heritable traits.
mhm.
So with those, we're looking at like 40 to 50% heritability,
Oh,
which
okay.
doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a lot until you realize that milk production in a cow is a heritability of about 20%.
Really?
And we
No
select
idea.
cows every year for more milk, and we get
Wow.
genetic progress in it.
Yeah.
So a drive for their working behavior or their interactions with other stock,
Mhm,
those are heritable and
mhm.
quite nicely heritable. Nice is when we say when it's relatively easy to breed for it.
So you'd say you would call every working breed that has, you know, its job, and you would call those most of the time, those are more heritable than, say, you know, fearfulness or
Yeah.
impulsiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, like,
and
the greyhound catching a rabbit is
that's
40%?
40 if might be getting close to 60 because that's a strong prey drive. So what they're actually trying
Yeah,
to do is catch something
yeah,
to eat. So
yeah,
it's a prey drive. And we've
yeah,
bred some of these breeds to have those behaviors.
yeah.
So, you see people who have got their border collie in town. So this is a dog
Mhm.
with a very strong
Yeah.
genetic impulse to go and herd things up,
Mhm.
whether it's the neighbor's cats, the ducks at the pond, whatever. It's going to try and herd them. And it wants
Mm.
to do a lot more exercise than the person next door who might have a French bulldog. And
Yeah.
its entire drive is to find something to lie down on and drool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the breeding over time in their background is also driving some of it. We get the same with terriers. So Jack Russells, fox terriers, those sorts of small dogs that were bred to go down rabbit holes and hunt prey.
Mhm.
you'll see them out walking. There'll be a bird fly off, and they're the dog that go and chase it to try and catch it. The Labrador,
Mhm.
who's been bred as a gun dog, is just sort of loping along, and it doesn't really try and do anything with the bird until it falls out of the sky, and it
Yeah,
can go and collect
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I mean, it might go
yeah,
and roll in it, but we see those sorts of ancestral
yeah, and so
breedings of
those are a lot higher, and heritable
yeah,
than,
those are more
say,
heritable traits. The other thing is most of those breeds have also bred for that genotype.
yeah,
So that's why we can make those sorts of broad statements of, Labrador, big fluffy rolly thing that just can't be friend.
yeah,
They've been bred to be big rolly friend. Terriers have been bred to either hunt rats or hunt rabbits or mice. So
mhm,
they're looking for little things that they can go and nip at and bite.
mhm,
Hunterways have been bred to go and walk through a paddock and bark as loud as they can.
mhm,
Heading dogs have been bred to round things up and stare at them.
yeah, yeah,
And some people notice their heading dog pups start trying to round up ducks in the yard or the chickens in the coop. They start trying to do that from like 8 to 10 weeks of
yeah,
age.
yeah, amazing.
That
Yeah,
drive is there. It's inbuilt
yeah.
into them.
Yeah. When, I think it was I've seen some I think it's called genome sequencing, and the letters or the words like, I don't know, kill bite or not to kill bite, some of them are X'd out and some of them aren't. Anyway, where I'm getting at with this is I think it's the, like, staffy sort of bully breeds. Some of them were bred to entertain. Yes, and then some of them were bred to, I think, be to kill things, similar to greyhounds maybe in that way, and I'm wondering how do you know? Like, is there a way to
Of
know which one's
which one
which?
you're going to get?
Yeah.
Generally not. Because actually, if you look back at it, like English Staffordshire Bull Terriers,
Mm,
if you look at the material on them from like the late 1800s, early 1900s,
mhm,
they were classified as a nursery dog.
mm,
So they were the dog that sort of sat in the nursery with the baby and was sort of there as like guard dog or friend. It's a ridiculous sound they make. They talk to you.
yeah, yeah. "Ow, ow, ow."
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then you've got other ones which were used for stuff like bull baiting. So their job was to
yes,
go in
yeah,
and bite an animal and retreat and irritate it and bite and
yeah,
but generally, when those things were outlawed, so the removal of bear
mhm,
baiting and bull
the
baiting,
activity. Yeah,
when those activities went away, the selection process to keep that in the system went away.
okay.
And there was no
How long does
longer,
that take?
probably only like three to four generations, and you've diluted
Okay.
it out with, because you're going to take this dog home.
Yeah.
The one that's going to generally leap up and cause trouble, they don't survive very long, generally not long enough to breed from because, twice bitten
Mhm,
and you're pretty shy. So we
mhm,
see that those genotypes disappear out of a population quite quickly through selection. We go, this is not an animal I want to be around, but I like the of them. They might like the head, they might like the body. There's
mhm,
something about the structure of that dog that they like.
mhm.
So they like how the dog looks. So now they're looking at how do I breed that dog without the other stuff.
Yeah, okay.
So now you're looking for the docile animals. You're not breeding from the aggressive ones, and
Yeah,
you put the time in to train them not to be aggressive.
yeah.
All dogs have
Do
the bite kill
yeah,
thing hanging out in there,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Do you think that with greyhound racing being banned, that over time greyhounds will have less of a prey drive?
I do think so, and also think there'll probably be a shift away from them having the stance they do.
Okay, yeah.
So if you think about the length of the legs at the front and
Mhm,
the back, they've got very long legs with very little muscle on top of the lower limb, which kind of puts them in that horse category of an injury to the lower leg is actually takes ages to heal.
mhm.
So it might see them bulk out a bit more and get more of a broad frame structure. Because actually, from a hanging around in your house perspective, greyhounds are actually pretty chill.
Very chill, yeah.
They go and they lie down on something and just fall asleep.
Yeah.
So that side of things, they can do that breeding and just make them the big
Mhm.
docile, chill dog pretty quick.
Yeah,
It'll take a
okay,
little bit longer
interesting.
for them to get
Yeah.
a slightly different body structure. Some of the prey drive will take longer than others, just because there's the odd one where the cat jumps in the yard and it's
Mhm.
immediately after a cat. But it's a case of it's not had to be classified yet.
Mhm.
So if you don't classify a phenotype, you can't do any breeding for it. So if you can classify the phenotype and go, we don't want animals that do this, that's when the breeding can take effect.
Okay, interesting.
We can't get rid of anything genetically that we can't describe,
Mm.
because how are you getting rid of it?
So do you think they'll be shorter, meaty, or
I think they'll get slightly shorter legs
Yeah.
and probably be a little bit meaty because they're not very wide. They're quite a narrow.
No, yeah, they're tiny. Well, skinny, yeah.
Yeah, they're narrow.
Yeah.
So I do see them, broadening out and probably become like stocky would be the word,
Mhm.
but relative to a greyhound, like anything is stocky.
Mhm.
The boisos or boisies, which are like the
Mhm.
really fancy pants looking greyhounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've kept them looking like that.
Yeah.
That's their breed standard, is to be tall and narrow.
Yeah.
But if the breed standard for greyhounds is based on racing, then
Mhm.
the drive for the longer leg and the deep, narrow chest for racing efficiencies goes away, and they start to become slightly more barrel chested over time. So a
Mhm.
broader chest, and their legs can start to shorten down.
Interesting. It's like the modern day Staffy Rivoli or
Yeah. Yeah. So like you'll,
Yeah.
you'll end up with basically a shrinking of a dog. So anything that we have shifted from being a fully working service dog to being a pet
Mm.
dog has shrunk.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Because with the exception of Great Danes, but that's just because
Yeah.
they kind of bred those to go, how much bigger can we make these?
Ridgebacks. What about Ridgebacks? Were they bigger than they were are?
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
were for keeping lions and tigers
Lions.
at bay.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh.
And then
Imagine how big they were.
Dobermans were a broader, thicker set dog, and they became bred for being a finer look to them. Rottweilers, amazingly, are slightly smaller than they used to be.
Mm.
Burmese and Burmese mountain dogs. I was going to say the Beethoven dog, showing my age.
Yes.
Same for
Yeah.
males,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Smaller.
they've actually got bigger.
Bigger
Yeah, because people went, let's have these ridiculously big, fluffy, soft
for
dogs.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. Crazy. I know we talked about behavior, but what about temperament? Can that be selected through breeding? I feel like breeders say that.
parents have been, yeah, uh, it can be. So you can definitely make them have a closer temperament to what you would like.
Mhm.
Now, that doesn't mean what you're generally talking about more than temperament is tolerance. So that dog is more likely to be tolerant of what is happening around it. So it's going to take us a little bit more before it snaps.
Yeah.
I am not aware of any breeding ability to make all of
A calm dog. Yeah.
a completely calm dog.
Yeah.
They're still going to
Yeah,
snap
it's not.
eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'll just take longer to reach that state.
Okay.
So you can make them more tolerable, you can make them more viable and biddable and all those sorts of things where they're easier to work with, take commands really quickly, learn really fast. Those all happen as a selection process, and we've selected dogs to do those behaviors faster and quicker. Temperament itself is relatively low heritability. So again, you're down in the 5 to 10% range.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean,
What
in
about
saying that,
red flags for
red flag.
behavior? Like, say you have a reactive dog that you're about to breed with. Is that a bad idea?
Yes, I'd be more cautious about reactivity. So
Mhm.
that is telling you what is sort of that's kind of what their tolerance is, right? So if a dog reacts to absolutely everything. It's telling you that that dog doesn't have much tolerance for what's happening. So some of that will be its experience over its life. Having a toddler poke you in the
Mhm.
belly for 4 years in a row is going to make you relatively irritable.
Yeah.
I don't know about the dog; it certainly makes me irritable after a while. But that's more of, I would be cautious of animals that are quicker to be irritated.
Mhm. Okay.
But in saying that, it depends on how you're irritating them. My dog, I can go and lie down and pretend he's my pillow, and he
Yeah.
will lie there and take it, and he's just like
Yeah.
keep sleeping. As soon as I touch his feet, he's up and he turns around and he's just like, no, you're not touching my feet, because he just doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So would that exclude him from a breeding program just because he didn't like his feet being touched? Probably not. If going in like they're asleep and leaning down just to like give them a pat, or walking past gives a quick snap, that's probably starting to become more of a, always something of caution is happening here.
Mhm.
And then reactivity to other people outside of their sphere of human people knowledge. As soon as someone new's there, they're really reactive. That would also be me sort of starting to go, how well socialized were they as a dog in their
Yeah.
pup years?
Yeah.
Because the pups are going to learn from the mother as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got 8 to 12 weeks of them learning to react to people
Everything
the way
from
that, that the bitch does.
yeah.
So if she's really reactive, those pups learn the behavior,
Mhm.
and that can be a bigger driver than actually genetically inheriting.
Itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How can breeders sort of be more responsible when they're evaluating animals and dogs for breeding?
I mean, the first one's going to be biased because I'm a geneticist. So the first one is just, even if you think the breed is, your animals are clear based on their parentage, or you've not seen a disease rise up in those animals, if possible, running them through a DNA test, at least for the common things within that breed. They are clear, um, but carriers exist in all breeds and in all lines. And if you've got two carriers and you make them, 1 in 4 of their pups are going to be affected by that condition. So you're looking at a
Wow.
quarter of those
Yeah.
pups just because
Yeah.
they were carriers and you weren't aware of it. They're still clear themselves and they're going to be happy and healthy dogs, but
Mhm.
their pups are going to be worse off.
Yeah.
And then the next part would probably be, what is the purpose for which they are being bred?
Mhm.
Is it that you have a market for those puppies? People would like them and they've approached you of interest for getting them out of that dog or out of that bitch? Or is this something you've got, I've got this dog and it should have some puppies before I neuter it, so I'm going to do that. Which
Mhm.
fortunately is a much rarer state now than it used to be, where people have to make sure it has a litter of pups before you spay them. That
Mhm.
idea has fortunately sort of petered out in the industry. But yeah, it's those sorts of things first, is the purpose, and is there anything unknown that you can find out relatively quickly? So there's a couple of DNA sequencing or DNA testing services that are run here in New Zealand. When you're talking about the value of a pup, the cost of the test is pretty low.
Yeah.
You can get a
Yeah.
breed specific panel for $160.
Yeah.
So doing the dog and the bitch are going to cost you $300 to $400,
Yeah.
and you can provide evidence with those puppies that they are
That they're
clear.
healthy.
Yeah.
What with you mentioned people sort of backyard breeding or whatever you wanna call it. What and if there was someone thinking about doing that because they love their dog and they want another one like it or whatever, and maybe it's not even maybe it's a mixed breed, maybe it's a doesn't matter, but what would you tell them about, you know, what that means for what they're doing?
Yeah. So it again comes back to, what is the purpose? So if you want another
Yeah.
dog exactly like the one you've got, it's not going to happen. You could clone your dog. So it's a genetically identical copy. Raise it exactly what you think is the same way you've raised the last one. And they're two different dogs because the experiences aren't identical. Um,
Yeah.
there will always be something slightly different. They will always be different to their parents. They'll always be different to their siblings. So both of those things are going to go through and be those sorts of occurrences where we're like, okay, that's not the reason to do it. The breeding from them now, absolutely, they can be mixed breed and you can have a really good purpose for them. So if they have the traits that a number of people are after, so if you think about the top ones on people's list, it's stuff like shedding. Will they
Mhm.
play with my kids? Are they not going to be too big? Are they not going to have too many health issues?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you can meet those 4 criteria and you can run a DNA test on them and you know that you've got a home for those puppies once they're bred, then you can go ahead and look into how you go about breeding them.
Mm.
If you fall at the first hurdle of who's going to buy these, then you're generating dogs that you're going to have to look after.
Yeah.
Depending on the breed, you might get 12 of them.
Yeah.
They don't have one.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of breeds that only have one, but you will get more than one puppy.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal
Yeah.
with more than one puppy.
Yeah. I know a few people who ended up with more than they wanted because of this reason. So, yeah, there's not always, a home to be found. Yeah, that's a good message. What's his name? The football player who cloned his dog. Did you hear about that?
No?
What's his name? Tom Brady.
Oh,
He cloned
yes.
his dog. Can you shed some light on that? As in, like, why not to do it? Or why to do it if you think that.
Yeah, so the first part is it depends on when you take your sample.
Mhm.
So a clone is produced from a cell of the animal that you're cloning. So if your dog's gotten old, so say it's even 12 and 13 is actually getting to be quite old dogs, generally speaking. So if you've got a 12-year-old dog, so you've started to notice, slowing down, its legs get sore, it's a bit, doesn't chase after the ball as much, it goes one throw and then flies down. And you take a sample from that, like some blood or a bit of tissue to clone from that dog and make that dog again.
Mhm.
When that pup is born, it is the same genetic age as the dog you took the sample from.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that dog is born at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And we've got these really neat parts on our chromosomes. So mammalian chromosomes are linear. So the bacteria are circles, so they don't have to worry about this problem. But our chromosomes are linear. So they're a long stretch of DNA in a line.
Mhm.
At the end of your chromosomes, to stop them falling apart, is a piece of DNA that's called the telomere. And what that does is it keeps the DNA together a bit like the little piece at the end of your shoelace that no one can ever remember the name of, just an
Yeah.
eglet, which is really
Yeah.
useful for like pub quizzes. But that's holding your DNA together.
Yeah.
Every time that your DNA is cycled through and a copy is made, so every time you go through a cell division, which in most parts of the body is every couple of months, it shortens the telomere ever so slightly because it can't
Okay.
keep putting it back in. It's energetically
Yeah.
expensive to add ends on. So
Yeah.
over time, you get to the point where the ends of the DNA does start to fray.
Mhm.
So this is why, if you think about what do dogs get in old age? Cancer, they get muscle loss, loss of wastage, and heart conditions and things like that. Cellular um, division and reproduction is going down. So
Mhm.
you've got a puppy, it's newborn, it's brand new out of the box, and it is 12 years old.
Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah,
Can't
so that means that
comprehend it.
so that pup, by the time it's a year of age, is now 13.
Mm.
So its probability of, so at 2 years of age, it's 14 years old,
Actually,
genetically.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that dog isn't going to
But it
get to
looks like
full,
a puppy,
it
obviously.
looks like a puppy, but it's
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
This is what happened to Dolly the sheep. So the
Mm.
first cloned animal was a
Mhm.
sheep. They cloned it from the mammary gland of a sheep, hence the name. It was called Dolly. Real inventive bunch of scientists. So they cloned it, but when it was born, it was 6 years old.
Mhm.
It didn't get to 6 years of age. It got to, I think, 2.5 to 3. So it
Okay.
died earlier
Yeah.
than the animal it was cloned from.
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the same thing would happen. So if you were looking to do cloning of your pet and you think you might do it in the future, the advice would probably be to take the sample of tissue that you're going to clone as soon as you get the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you think you're going to clone it or not, you take a sample of it as a puppy,
Mm-hmm.
store it, you can put a -80 freezer, it'll last for ages. So you've got this tissue stored away, it's safe. And then when you're ready to clone that animal in the future, and you do want the same physical characteristics, most of the behaviors will be similar. Not the same, but similar. You then clone that animal.
Mm-hmm.
That sample that you took 12 years, 13 years ago, you take that sample and you clone that animal now. When it's
Mm-hmm.
born, it's 12 weeks older than it would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a huge difference between being 12 weeks old, older than you
Mm-hmm.
really are, or being 12 years older than you
Mm-hmm.
really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But it's a bit of a mind bender one where you're like,
It is. It's like, okay,
how?
well then do they behave differently because they're genetically 12?
So some of the behaviors will be altered. So their energy metabolisms are going to be changed
Mhm,
because the cellular turnover is changed. So their ability to run around for as long is going to be reduced
mhm.
because they've already got cellular damage occurring because the DNA is so much shorter. There's more chance of cancer turning up earlier in their life.
Yeah, but then they'll still be teething, so they'll, you know,
Yep.
right? They'll have that, but then they are running out of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
wow.
but they'll be like, I'm so young for my teeth to be falling out. Wait, no, that happens. But then they fall out when I got old. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that sort of stuff happens as well. So there are ways to add bits back onto the telomeres and extend the amount of DNA that's there, but
Mm,
it's not easy.
mhm. Okay.
And on top of that, it's about $50,000.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it would be way more when I first read that article, but yeah, I was like, wow, it's
I
like
mean, it is comparatively cheap,
yeah,
but
yeah.
still
Comparative
$50,000.
like, it's still a lot of money, but of course it's yeah, it's a lot cheaper than I thought it would be.
Yeah, you're
Are
thinking it's going to
there
cost like $1 million.
yeah, 1,000,000, yeah, yeah, it's wild. Are there traits that you see fit that should be stopped in the breeding of dogs?
The one that first of all comes to mind is just snouts. Um,
Yeah,
short faced dogs. I
mhm.
have to admit, they're incredibly cute.
Yeah,
And our brain is,
pro
we're programmed to see them as cute, but it's not great for those dogs.
yeah,
My next cab off the rank after short faces would be their legs. So hip dysplasia as a trait in dogs is becoming, I think, slightly more common
mhm,
as we change the way dogs stand. So, you like a bull terrier or bulldog or a staffy with their shoulders out, looking wide and staunch.
yeah,
Yeah, looking buff. But you've changed where their bones are connecting in their shoulders.
mhm,
So now they're going to get shoulder or elbow displacement. Narrowing back in the hind legs can cause conformation changes there as well.
mhm,
And there's no single gene to test for it.
mhm,
That's the killer part of those is we can't go, just take that one gene out.
mm,
We'll just deal with that one gene. We're talking about an unknown number of genes. Even
yeah,
for shortening and lengthening in the face, that's
yeah,
not one gene that's causing it.
yeah,
You're looking at a myriad. We can't just go, we want that one. We don't want that one.
yeah,
Which we can do
yeah,
for that for stuff like some of the metabolic diseases. We know there's a single cause. Neurological stuff, blindness, those can all be one gene. We can test for it. We can control hip dysplasia, face and airway structure. Those are long-term breeding goals to try and correct
work
or move
towards.
away from.
Yeah, yeah. What questions do you recommend people ask a breeder before adopting a dog? So about health and behavior.
Yep. For behavior, my biggest recommendation would actually be making sure you can meet at least the the dam, meet the mother of the pups.
Mhm,
Find out how it reacts to you, whether it seems like a happy dog to be around people.
mhm,
And then health wise, it is asking, have you looked into any of the possible diseases for that dog breed? If you're going for a specific dog breed, terrify yourself, have a look at what diseases or disorders or conditions that those dogs can have.
Mhm.
When you go along and you're having a look at the puppies, ask, have you looked into whether these pups have the possibility of having any of these things?
Mhm.
So that's you showing that you're showing the time to be familiar with that breed.
Mm.
Um, and that'll help you out a lot. So doing it that way is really good. Those would be the big ones off the top of my list.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and even just ask them, why did you breed this dog?
Yeah.
Is it because it's a fantastic show dog? Is it because of anything else specific that those dogs might be used for?
Mhm.
Again, why?
Mhm.
Same reason I ask the students why they turn up to class. Why are you here?
That's a good one. Great question to ask. What would be your biggest message for dog owners and breeders to understand about genetics and as an overall wrap up?
Yep. Um, it's not scary. Genetics aren't a scary thing. And on top of that, most geneticists or people with a knowledge of genetics are usually willing to have a conversation about it.
Mhm.
So have a talk to people about it. Don't run with an idea that something is genetic unless you know for sure that it is. We have lots of other conditions that occur that aren't genetic and are just time causes them. Yeah, those would be the things. It's not scary. Do a bit of research and a bit of reading about what the breed that you're interested in, what it might have as genetic conditions,
Mhm.
what its history is, because it tells you what they're going to end up like.
Yeah.
Chihuahuas are the shape they are because they were a guard dog.
Yeah.
They were a teeny tiny little dog that people
Yeah.
wouldn't see as they break into a house,
Mm.
but they're incredibly territorial. So you're
Yeah.
going to have a dog that likes to bite you.
Yeah.
The only benefit is that it's a Chihuahua that's biting you, so that
Yeah.
there's a vast reduction in the jaw strength.
Yeah.
So it's have a look at the history of the dog, have a look at the history of the genetics of them.
Love that. Love the Chihuahua example. Where can people learn more about your work and research if they want to?
For my research specifically, so the Massey University website has quite a few of the different research projects I'm on. I do whack them in my LinkedIn when I remember to.
Mhm.
And then where possible, they end up also in like the rural newspapers.
Yeah,
So Farmers Weekly, Rural
cool.
News end up with stuff in there as well.
Awesome. Well, that is a wrap. Nick, thank you for all of your knowledge. It was incredibly interesting for me. And yeah, thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's been good fun.